In this video, we create a database using phpMyAdmin. We add a newsletters table to our new database. We also quickly talk about the different data types that we need to use. Okay, let's go ahead and create our first database. So if you go back to localhost 8080, that'll redirect you to the dashboard. And then up here we have phpMyAdmin. This is the tool that we're going to use to manage our databases. So up along the top here we have a database tab, and just under create database we've got an input field here for adding the name of our new database. Mine's already auto filled because I was doing some testing before, but you'll have to type out meat yogurt. And that's created our database, and the first thing we want to do is add a table to our database. So I guess just think of the database itself as a container for a whole bunch of tables, and those tables basically represent something like a spreadsheet. So if we go ahead and call our first table newsletters, a number of columns 4, let's change that to 3, and hit the go button. So this is where we get to name each of our columns. So each database table, ideally it needs an ID. This is just an incrementing number that allows you to identify each table row. It's going to be an integer. The length is 11. Default, we'll leave that as none, but somewhere along here we want to tick the auto increment button here, and that's just going to allow us each time you add a new record to your table, it'll just automatically increment that ID up for you. This one we're going to call name. This is going to be the name of the person that's signing up to the newsletter, varchar 255, and that's all we need to do. And let's go email also varchar 255, and let's save that. So you can see up here it's giving us the structure of our database. We've got an ID column, a name column, and an email column. So what we want to do now is maybe just go and add some test data so we can see what that looks like. So if we go to insert, we're going to leave the ID blank because it's going to auto populate for us. Name Malcolm, email Malcolm at example.com. Hit the go button. It's shown us the SQL query that it used to add the record, but if we go back to browse, we can see that it's got an ID of 1, name Malcolm, and my email. Let's add another one. Let's add one for Haley at example.com. Go. It's given us the SQL query that it used to add that record, and if we go back to browse, we can see that it's added a new record. So that's perfect. We can now see that we've got a database. It has a table called newsletters, and in that table we have 2 new records, one for Malcolm, one for Haley, and the email addresses. Let's just quickly loop back to the structure of our table and go over a few of the data types. So if we add a new column in, so if you go to add 1 columns after email, go, and we're going to call this created at. So let's just talk about these top 4 here. An integer is a number, and it can have a maximum of 11 characters stored. We've got a varchar that has a maximum of 255 characters, and that can store numbers, letters, symbols. It's for storing text. But like I said, it has a limit of 255. So I've done a quick Google search for this character count tool, And we can see that's 255 characters. So I guess it's kind of unlikely that you're going to have somebody's name or their email being longer than 255 characters. We've got a text field that's what you're going to use if you do want to store anything bigger than 255 characters. Maybe you're asking somebody for some comments or a feedback, or you're storing the contents of a web page. You're going to use the text, and date is pretty self-explanatory. That's for storing a date, and that's the one that we're going to use for our created at column. And that's just going to be so we can look back and see when somebody signed up to our newsletter. Oh, and I forgot to say that you need to hit the save button over here. And if we go back to browse, if we go to structure, we can see that we now have the created at date column on our table.